All right. Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of our Navigating the Job
Uh,
Search webinar series.
Amber, I cannot hear you. Are you there?
Oh, yeah, you can't hear me? So, welcome everybody to our 10th episode of our Navigating the Job Search webinar series. Can you guys believe it's been 10 weeks already? So, we've been doing this for over 2 months now. Super exciting. So, yeah, we have a special guest today. We have Hardik, who's going to talk to us about how he navigated the job search and any tips and tricks he might have. Before we get started, I'll just, as usual, talk a little bit about logistics. So, this is very mentee and community driven. Definitely want to make sure that we answer all of your questions and that you guys get value out of this. So we highly encourage that you guys ask questions during the webinar, and we'll make sure to ask Hardik. So there are three ways you could ask questions. The first one is through the chat below. So definitely click the chat button and just like feel free to drop questions anytime. You could also use the raise hand function where, if you raise your hand, we can unmute you and you could ask your question in person. And finally, if you want to stay anonymous, you can use the Q&A function down below also. And then I will ask your question. So yeah, without further ado, let me introduce our special guest today. So Hardik is a skilled artificial intelligence engineer who has worked in academia and the imaging industry. He has been very involved in a variety of research and development projects in ML and deep learning. And he also completed a master's degree in CS, specialized in AI. So welcome, Hardik, and thank you for being here. Super excited to have you.
Thank you so much, Amber, for a warm introduction. Yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So could we kind of start by, would you mind just telling us a little bit more about your background and your experience and any past professional positions you held?
Yeah, for sure. But before that, I just want to give a huge shout out to all the attendees because I know going one step further, preparing for the interviews, giving interviews, it really takes a lot to take that time to go and attend the sessions, get that experience in, and improve your basically your job search process. So a huge shout out to all the attendees there. And yeah, maybe I can give a little bit of a brief background about myself. So my primary domain is computer vision. So currently I'm working as a computer vision engineer at a medical tech company based in Toronto. So primarily this has been my domain, and I got to know about computer vision. My first encounter was back in the year 2017 when I was working for a consultancy company, and I was working on very basic projects like facial recognition apps. So slowly I started digging up more, and then it really caught my interest. And then I wanted to dive further deep into this domain, and that saw me pursuing my master's degree, where I also worked on a thesis in the field of computer vision. So slowly and steadily, I was building the skill set behind myself, and slowly I got a little bit of confident, and I knew what I wanted to do. Computer vision is like a very niche domain, so slowly I gathered my skill set around it, and then I landed an internship, which helped me to further strengthen my practical skills as well at the same time. And yeah, it got me to where I am, like as a full-time computer vision engineer. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Computer vision sounds like such a cool industry. I mean, I personally really wish I knew more about it. Definitely want to do more projects in the area. So you mentioned earlier about how you got interested and you found out about the field a few years back. What were the top most interesting things about computer vision for you? Like, how did you, or what are your favorite things about working in computer vision?
I see, that's such a good question. And I guess pretty much every interview asks me this question, like why computer vision? So yeah, I would be more than happy to answer this question because there's a special connection between for me for images and like the video data. So like computer vision. So for all the attendees, like who don't really know well about computer vision, it's basically dealing with like lots of images and video data and further analyzing them and classifying them what images or objects exist. So initially from since my childhood I had an interest for like photography and images, but then slowly I saw myself pursuing engineering and then going away from that direction and going towards technology. And then I was working on all sorts of things like Java, C++ programming, but slowly I encountered there's a field of artificial intelligence that also deals with images and video, and that caught my attention in the first place. So like basically it came back in a full circle, and I thought, okay, this is at a very good intersection. I get to do technology as well as work with images. So that's how it took my initial interest there. And then, yeah.
That's awesome. That's kind of like talking a little bit about the intersection of, something that you're excited about, like on the more of like artistic side, and then putting it together with tech. So I really appreciate your answer. I think that's a really, really cool area to be in. And it's awesome that you're doing work in that field.
Thank you.
Um, so you talked a little bit earlier about how you did your master's degree and how some of your research and your thesis was also in the field. And now you work as a computer vision engineer within sort of like the medical field.
Mhm.
So how did you move from academia to industry? Did you have certain factors that made you consider, I actually want to be in industry versus academia, or did you feel like you had to make any trade-offs between working as an engineer versus like, I don't know, maybe potentially pursuing a PhD or like further research?
Mhm. Yeah, that's an interesting question again. So while I was doing my master's degree, while I was still studying, I was constantly networking with people in the industry or over LinkedIn chats or whatever to understand what's happening in the industry, what skill sets are being used, and how the research being done in academia has been put into production and how it's impacting the users. So as I kept talking to people and started understanding more about how these algorithms that we play around within the school environment, how do they actually impact the users? So listening to this slowly gained my interest again, and that's when I decided I had good research skills. I had good skills to analyze a research paper and then like break it down into small pieces. But then I was lacking some of the production level skills, for example, cloud technologies, or like how to containerize an applications. And this is where Sharpest Minds came into picture. So I had a good analytical and research skills, but
Yeah.
Sharpest Minds came into the place where I had to learn production level skills. And the mentorship helped me to gain those skills, and then it helped me transition into the industry.
Yeah, I love that. And actually, like, just wanted to echo something that you mentioned about how, like, in academia, a lot of the work that we do. So I also finished a master's recently, actually, within data science, and a lot of it is very academic, and like proving like state of the art models, or like looking into like cutting edge research and stuff like that, and like implementing papers. But in terms of the productionization side, we rarely ever deploy anything. And I totally agree with you. That's something I gained a lot from in Sharpest Minds. That's the first time like I learned about Heroku and all of these apps and stuff like that. Yeah, so really appreciate that. And also just wanted to underscore to other mentees that that is like one awesome thing about Sharpest Minds. If you haven't already talked to your mentor about deploying your project, definitely do so. So we have a couple of awesome questions in the Q&A. The first one is about your job right now. So why did you have the decision to pursue an internship versus just going straight into a job? Considering that you were already experienced, I would have expected that you would be able to have good choices for jobs. So any thoughts on that?
Okay. Yeah, maybe I guess I didn't communicate clearly. Sorry for the confusion. So the internship that I did, that was the part of my master's degree. So I started my master's degree in fall to 2019, and then after 2 semesters down, I went on an internship as a part of degree.
Hmm.
And once I came out of that internship and got back to school, did my thesis, and then all these small elements came together into my profile and helped me get a job directly. So yeah, I did internship as a part of my degree, but yeah, full-time job was something that I did after my degree.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Also, it's so funny that you started in 2019. I started at the same time as you. So we basically, well, I graduated this year from my
Oh, hey,
master's.
I see.
So
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
So what was if you don't mind sharing, what was your internship on, or like what type of like company did you join? Was it like a larger company, a smaller company, and was it also within computer vision? And I guess like to add to that, so the way, I don't know how the master's programs in Canada work, but just like for the US, I'm an international student. The way that you can do an internship here as an international student, you can do up to 2 internships if you have a 2-year master's program on average, obviously like
Okay.
dependent on visa. Was it the same for you? Did you only do one internship or did you do like more than one when you were in master's?
I see. Yeah, I guess it's pretty much the same. So maybe I can start by describing what was the length of my internship. So
Mm.
as part of the master's degree, I had an option to go on a 4 month or an 8 month long internship. So I got an internship for 8 months. So I went through that, like it was for 2 semesters. And then I did only one in like 8 month long internship with only one company. It was the name Matrox. It was a company based in Montreal, which deals with like imaging hardware and software. So the position was again a computer vision research intern. So this position was again a research-based position that involved reading a lot of research papers and figuring out which are the state-of-the-art algorithms in computer vision, and then slowly integrating it to the company's framework or platform. So yeah, it was a very special experience, and I cannot stress how much this internship experience was valuable in those interviews that I was giving for the full-time job. So because it was super relevant, I had everything to demonstrate that I possess the skill set, and it just puts me like above in the pool of applicants. So yeah.
Gotcha. And one thing that you mentioned that I think is really interesting for me as someone who did my program in the US and just like in general for other mentees who are watching who might be also doing a master's program. So you mentioned your internship was 8 months.
Mhm.
Is that sort of like the norm in Canada? Or do internships normally like last that long? And out of curiosity, because my internship was actually pretty short. It was only like 10 weeks, 10 to 12 weeks. I think that's the average length here. And I don't know if that's like a function of like
I
I'm
see.
on a visa here. I'm an international student. So I don't know if it's like regulations regarding like work. But that's awesome that you did 8 months. Is that like
Yeah,
the
I
norm?
see. Yeah, I guess it's pretty much it's very different in US compared to Canada. You're like you get a permit very easily to
Mm-hmm.
go on an internship while you're studying. So, but it varies from program to program, from school to school in Canada, especially. So the school that I chose offered an 8 month long internship, and I
Oh,
felt
okay.
that that was valuable, and I got to learn beforehand that this program offers an internship, and I felt that's super valuable to gain like the product or like the industry experience while you're studying, right? So it really helps and adds on to your profile. So yeah.
Gotcha. That's super helpful. Yeah, I really appreciate that. And yeah, definitely. If other folks have questions about like interning in the US or Canada, feel free to ask us, whether it's on like Slack or something. I know like interning in the US has a lot of like, legal related stuff. And I'm more than
Yeah.
happy to share what I know. Obviously, that's not going to apply to everyone because we all have our own like situations. But yeah, it's really key that you talked about that. And I think that's such a relevant topic, especially now with the world like being remote and like internships being remote, like how does that even work logistically, right? So digging a bit deeper into your project and just like your mentorship at Sharpest Minds. So I know we talked a lot about just like the intersection of like deep learning, AI, and also computer vision, and also just productionization you mentioned earlier. Could you tell us more about what your project was at Sharpest Minds?
I see. Maybe I believe it would help the mentees at the same time that why I chose this mentorship program and how I could find my mentor. So as I
Mhm.
was mentioning, while I was doing my masters, I was talking to a lot of people over LinkedIn and trying to understand what's going on in the market right now, what skills are valued. So I had this sort of list of skills that I wanted to go forward with. So I could take that skill sets in my mind, and I could try to find a mentor who's offering me those skill sets. So I was very specific. I want to learn the skill set, have this project, have the skills, and then get into the job market. So I was looking to learn like the cloud technologies, few of the container applications, and like just how to make your project or like application scalable to multiple users. So my project was a text recognition application. So a user can upload an image consisting of text, and I would be able to retrieve that text and provide
Oh,
uh, like a raw text, basically. So I can say it was an intersection between computer vision and NLP. I know you work on the OCR NLP side, so it was really interesting. So my so my mentor already had this project in his mind and how he was going to take this project and helped me learn cloud technologies, Kubernetes, etc. So we started basically working on with some of the Jupyter notebooks, initial prototyping, like making the pipeline end to end work. Once it was working, we started wrapping around it into a container. We built a containerized application, and then we deployed it on AWS cloud. So there was one specific serverless compute that we are using, like AWS Lambda. That was super important for me, because right now in my job I'm working with AWS Lambda. So that experience is really valuable to me. And then once the application was deployed on AWS Lambda, we tried to make it scalable using the Kubernetes platform. And we basically also deployed it to the like the end users. So I had a front end ready. I wrapped it around into a front end, and I had this short link which I used to demonstrate my project to like the hiring managers during my interviews. So that really helped.
Yeah, I think you make a great point there. So I really appreciate your sharing, like the tech stack, also the process that went into putting your project together. One thing I wanted to highlight about what you just mentioned now is how you had a short link that you were able to share with hiring managers during the interview. And one thing that we've seen across these like webinar episodes or webinar series is that when mentees have something to share or something to demo with recruiters, it definitely makes a big impact, because not only do they know that you know what you're talking about, also for someone who may or may not be technical, it kind of gives a clear picture of like what you're doing, and it helps them understand what your area of expertise in, and where who they might be able to connect you with within the company who's hiring, or who you could just like chat with as well. So really appreciate that as like a great way to like showcase your skill set, and also if what you're working on is within the realm of like the company that you're applying to, it's a great way to kind of show your interest in the company as well. Another question about your project. So you talked a lot about like the tech stack, the different things that you did, also like the process of like putting it together, and finally what you did to showcase your project to hiring managers. In your opinion, what was the most difficult or most challenging part of your project?
Oh, I guess yeah, I can definitely talk about that, because I vividly remember there was one week I was struggling with just one issue. That basically this whole thing was completely new to me. I was stepping into an uncomfortable zone, figuring out cloud tech, like AWS stack, and like navigating all sorts of things there. So the challenging part was stepping into new technologies and learning how you can actually productionize your code. I guess there was a like really good resistance there, but then continuously reading about stuff, getting help from mentor helped me overcome that. So no matter like the skills that you possess, you have to constantly keep developing new skills in order to be a top candidate in the market, right? So I felt stepping out of your comfortable zone and like learning new skills is important, but at the same time it's hard, so just keep going.
Yeah, I love how you mentioned, stepping out of your comfort zone and being open to, growth and learning. I think aside from just having that as a good mindset, especially since the world today is changing very quickly, and data science, I think as an industry, there's a lot of innovations, a lot of research that's happening. So what might have worked last year might not be, the best model out there right now this year, right? So lots of things are constantly changing. So I really appreciate the growth mindset that you talked about. And also with a lot of companies, especially if you're working with, I don't know, like other tools that you haven't used before that's specific to a company, being able to share that with your hiring manager or your interviewer, I think is really key, and will make a great case for, why, you should be on the team as well.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going along with you, because yeah, in interviews there are all sorts of behavioral questions, and they do ask you like what was one of the challenges that you faced in your past projects. And this was a really strong case for me, as I could talk a lot more about it, because I did face a big challenge, and there was a time I wanted to give up, but yeah, eventually, like with the help of the mentor, it happened. So yeah.
Yeah, it seems like I've asked you two questions that showed up in your interview. So not intentional, but thank you for sharing your answers. Now you guys know what, an awesome interview answer also looks like. So added
Yeah.
bonus to today's session. So we have another question here, and I think this is a really good one and something that I see on a lot of forums as well. So could you elaborate on how you think the industry differentiates a computer vision data scientist versus a computer vision engineer?
Mhm. Uh, I guess I can be a little, I'm not sure if I get it right. So, are we talking about the data scientist who deals with image data, or like, because computer vision, there are two things in this industry pertaining to computer vision. There's a
Mm,
computer vision researcher. I guess that's what we are trying to say, a computer vision data scientist.
mm,
And there's a computer vision engineer. So
mm.
uh, so there can be cases where this role is really ambiguous in the company that you're working on. Maybe you're wearing both the hats, but they're like, usually there are two people
Oh,
working on two
did he
people.
freeze for you guys too? Or is that just me?
uh,
Can you let me know in the chat if I'm freezing or... Oh, I think you froze. It's running fine. Okay.
uh, I can hear you, Amber. You can hear me?
Okay, you froze for like 2 seconds, but it might be me. Okay, sorry. Apologies for that.
Not a problem. So yeah, as I was mentioning, that there are two distinct roles as computer vision researcher and a computer vision engineer. So the role of the researcher is to constantly be in touch with the research community and see which are the state of the art algorithms and how can this be used in order to solve some business problem inside the company. While a computer vision engineer works more so on the production side and tries to figure out a solution and as to how this algorithm or a model, like a computer vision model, can be scaled to multiple users, uh, at the same time giving a good performance in terms of accuracy as well as incident speed. Like that's important. Like user wouldn't want to wait like 10 seconds to get their results for or analysis for a single image, right? So computer vision engineer works more so on the production side to make it efficiently running and scalable to increase number of users. So yeah, I guess I hope that answers the question.
Got it. Yeah, I think that actually really clarified a lot. And that's a follow-up question, actually. So really appreciate how you shared the difference between like the research role versus the more engineering role. So I guess this is a two-part question, but the first part is, are there skills that are common to both of those roles that you think are crucial to being a good like engineer and researcher? And the
Mhm.
second part is, are there skills that are specific to each role?
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. There are some skills that are there's a good overlap of skill sets for both the positions. I would say having really good algorithm or coding skills is really important because nowadays I even gave interviews for some of the research positions,
Oh, that's awesome.
and yeah, and there were like competitive coding questions as part of the interview process. So I believe keeping in touch with your coding skills along with learning theory in computer vision and
Mm.
getting a good understanding of the model is both are important at the same time, and it will get you a long way because not many people focus on both the skills, especially the competitive coding skills. So I believe that's really important. And when we talk about the specific skill sets that are required, and maybe I can talk more so on the engineer side. You need to learn, I believe nowadays every company is using an AWS or a cloud stack. Basically doesn't matter, AWS, GCP, or Azure. So at least knowing one of those cloud platforms will really give you an edge uh, uh, in the like candidate pool. And on the researcher side, I guess you should be really good with analytical skills. Like it involves reading a lot of research papers and developing a good understanding as to what the research paper is uh, innovating, and also what are the results that looks like there. So yeah, that's really important.
Yeah, I really appreciate how you kind of talked about that because even though like the skills kind of go hand in hand, you mentioned that there is an opportunity to go deeper on, one side or like one area of the industry, whether that's like as a CV researcher or CV engineer. And so knowing, now that our mentees kind of know from you,
Mhm.
what those differences are, like what's really valued in the area, I think that's going to be helpful as, folks go into their job search and also build out their projects and, hopefully are able to showcase the skills that you just mentioned in their projects as well. So kind of taking a step back into your mentorship a little bit. So I know you mentioned that, before coming into Sharpest Minds, you already knew what you wanted to work on, what kind of mentor you wanted, and also just like what skills you wanted to improve on and like what areas you wanted to learn as well. Could you talk a bit about the structure of your mentorship? Did you do a structure wherein, you first did like some, pre-mentorship learning, whether that's an online course or something that your mentor shared with you, and then you did your project and then applied for jobs? Or was it kind of like you did multiple projects and then aside from the big one that you had and then applied for jobs simultaneously, or kind of like a mix of everything? How was your program structured?
Yeah, I can definitely share that, and I believe it would be good experience for the other mentees too, to understand how other mentorship works with like different mentors and mentees. So my mentorship was for a period of 3 months, and it was kind of a learning on the go. As I was learning or reading new technologies, I was also implementing them parallelly. So the way it was structured was that it was broken down into 12 weeks, my mentorship, and then in each week there were small milestones that were set by my mentor, and also there were enough resources provided in order to get me started with it. So I had to do a lot of reading initially to get to understand what I'm going to do beforehand, try to read what technology stack I'm going to work with. And once I could grasp the theoretical understanding, it was time to get them into play and like installing all other tools and like packages and getting started with it. So yeah, essentially just breaking down to small milestones and like going one feature at a time and like just putting it into production at each cycle. So yeah.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. And I think that's a great way to plan projects in general, especially when you have a big one, whether you're, doing an academic project or a project at work or just like a personal project. Having like concrete milestones, I think, are a great way to just make sure that number one, you kind of like are on the right track. You have great points to check in with your mentor or your manager or whoever you're checking in with. And also second, so that you don't get overwhelmed. So really appreciate that tip. And I think that's something that I'm going to apply to my own life. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
So diving deeper into your job search, and I think you're going to have like great insight on this, because aside from having applied to jobs, you mentioned earlier that now you sit on the opposite side of the table where you like interview people. So very curious, could you talk a bit about what the job application process was like for you, especially as an experienced hire? So when did you start applying for jobs? Did you only apply to computer vision jobs? And when you were looking for companies, did you have any like filters that you used, like big companies, startups, within the healthcare field, or other additional filters?
I see. I have a lot to say on this, but maybe I can start with how did I narrow down my focus. I knew what domain I had to go into and what positions to look for. So I started first of all formulating the positions that I had to look for. So I did my research in the market. I talked to a few people as to what other position exists in this computer vision domain. Once I had those keywords from networking people and like trying to understand what position exists, having these keywords really helped for me, because I could easily go on any job board platform, enter those keywords and apply all sorts of filters. And that really helped me in coming to the industry that I wanted to apply to. I believe I wasn't being picky, but I knew for sure I didn't want it to go in fintech, because they only deal with like tabular data and they don't have a lot of pixels to crunch. So there was a choice by elimination. So I eliminated fintech, so that left with me with like healthcare, medical, or there were like other different sorts of applications as well, like automobile industry, especially the autonomous car. So yeah, in this way I narrowed down the positions that I had to focus, the industries that I had to focus, and I was a bit constrained by the location that I had to move around in Canada. So I was looking especially in like Toronto area.
I see.
So yeah, that's how I started with my job search, because doing this ground study was really important as to what positions you want to focus on. It gets really simple after that.
Gotcha. And I think that's actually a really great technique, what you mentioned earlier about how you kind of used your networking sessions, your coffee chats to not only like ask about the industry, but to ask like what positions exist.
Mhm.
I think for me, when I was applying for jobs, that was a difficult kind of challenge I faced. I didn't actually know what jobs existed. I wasn't sure about the difference between like engineer versus researcher versus scientist versus like so and so and so. So I
Mhm.
really appreciate how you share that and even like use that knowledge to then go into the job boards and then
Mhm.
kind of like see these are the jobs that exist across these companies.
Mhm.
And also then apply to those jobs that you found interesting and found to be a good fit.
Mhm.
I also like how you mentioned earlier that applying for jobs was also a process of elimination for you. You kind
Yeah.
of had this vision of like what you knew you wanted to work on, or at least like what type of data that you wanted to work on.
Mhm.
Like what type of interesting problems you wanted to solve for.
Mhm.
So I love how you discussed that instead of just selecting like one industry was more just like what industries don't I want to work in, and then what industries remain, and then applying to those industries that
Mhm.
you may want to work in or you may not, but it's not the ones that you're sure you don't want to work in. So
Mhm. Yeah,
that's
yeah,
great.
yeah, for sure. It really helps yourself, and your process gets so much simpler because you have figured out what position, what industry you want to go on, and then it's just a matter of time. You break it down into smaller pieces, and then yeah, you just get started very quickly in it.
Yeah, it's kind of like what they teach you like in SATs when you have multiple choice questions, right? Like you may not know the right answer, but you know which ones are completely wrong.
Belong.
And then
Yeah.
you get a 50-50 chance of like what the right answer is. So like where you want to end up. And I think that's great.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of really good questions in the chat.
Mhm.
Um, so the first one is, what do you think is more important for people early in their career? Do you think it's implementing pre-existing AI successfully and being proficient in Python and other languages versus being able to build AI models from the ground up and then fine-tune them?
Mhm. Yeah, this is a very interesting question, and I believe I was there at that place where I was initially trying to figure out, okay, how do I get into this AI as a fresher, right? So
Mhm.
my journey was similar to as any other fresher. I started doing the courses on Coursera by Andrew Ng. I'm pretty sure like everyone starts with that. So that was a good starter because it helps you to learn the fundamentals quickly. Moving ahead, as a fresher, what would be the most? So I guess this question relates to like how can you maximize, like how can you get most out of your time? So I would suggest go on experimenting or play around with the existing AI models, and try to just understand end to end, like how do they work. If you are using a particular model that exists, like the research paper exists, I would strongly recommend going deep into that research paper and trying to understand which are the fundamental blocks, because once you use it, and you're definitely going to put it onto your profile, and this question would definitely arise in your interviews where they go deep into the models and try to understand how deep is your understanding of the model that you're using.
Hmm.
So try to use the existing models, try to understand how end to end do they work, and then once you have a good grasp or good understanding of this as to how each fundamental blocks work within, and then you can go deep into like playing around with the layers of the models and like fine tuning it. So that would be really easy. So this is how I would go, and I would just like this is a good path to get started into it.
Gotcha. So as a follow-up question there, how deep into the model do you think, mentees or, just like people in general who are trying to break into the CV industry, how deep into the models do people need to know? Like, do they need to know every single thing about deep learning, like every single layer, like how transformer works and so on and so forth? Or, is it enough to know just like big picture ideas?
Mhm. I see. So yeah, this question is, I mean, it's an interesting question, but also it gets really subjective as to
Hmm.
what you might be asked in the interview, right? But as a macro level view, you should be able to understand. I can talk a little bit about the perspective on computer vision models. So
Mm-hmm.
you can dive deep into the what are the layers that are used and why they are used in certain
Mm-hmm.
way, and having a good understanding of why a particular loss function was used in that particular model really helps, because these are some of the common questions. Like, I wouldn't recommend going very deep into it because you might end up like losing your focus in it. So just
Right.
like big pieces, like what are the layers in the model, why they are used in this specific order, what are the loss functions, and how this model is evaluated, what are the different metrics used to evaluate this model. So having understanding about that should be good to get started with.
That's great. And I think that's also a great segue into one of the other questions that we have, especially since we were talking about like interviewing and just like, what questions are you getting asked versus like what topics are you actually like using in your job now? So our next question, so I really appreciate you guys' questions. Thank you guys for being so engaged. It makes the session a lot more lively. So really appreciate everyone who's attending right now, and especially those who are asking questions. So thank you. So apart from knowledge about cloud, could you give a couple of examples of technical questions that you get asked or that you ask about computer vision?
Mhm. I see. So yeah, this is giving me some recall of flashbacks about my interviews, and yeah, they were really rigorous. But
Yeah.
the way my mentorship progressed helped me strengthen my theoretical knowledge. So I had this cheat sheet ready with me, some of the expected technical questions on computer vision. So before the interviews, I just used to go through all the theory,
Mm,
like one-liner or two-liner answers, and that really helped me giving a polished answer in the interviews, because everybody has an understanding, but everybody isn't able to deliver that answer properly. So
mm,
having those polished answer is really important. And if we come to the questions that were being asked, um, primarily they usually started with one of their favorites, I believe, the bias versus variance. What's the difference? Uh, so they usually start with that. They slowly went on to digging into my resume, what models I used, and then getting deeper into those models and testing my understanding as to what activation functions were used and why those particular activation functions were used. And yeah, also testing the understanding of what are the different loss functions and which loss functions to use in which cases. So yeah, these are like some of the really important and like common questions I faced during the interviews.
Yeah, I think it's great that you mentioned earlier how, anyone can understand a concept really, but explaining a concept to an interviewer and making sure that you're able to explain it well and like flawlessly, or not necessarily flawlessly, but like in a way that they can understand and like ensure that you know what you're talking about is really key. Right.
Mhm,
So I really appreciate how you mentioned that you have a sort of like cheat
mhm,
sheet with like common questions that are asked or like questions that you got like in the past, and then you kind of go through it almost like a reviewer,
mhm,
before an exam or whatever. Like I remember before my college
mhm,
exams, I would like have a reviewer that I would go through before the test, just like highlights to like help you like refresh your memory.
mhm,
That's an awesome technique that, if it works for other mentees, would encourage you to try it. It's something that I've used in the past as well, and I think it's just a great way to, use like memory recall, and also just like have the opportunity to kind of like practice your answers, whether it's like to yourself in a mirror or like I don't know, to like somebody, to a friend, to your mentor, to one of us here at Sharpest Minds. If you guys ever want to practice your interview answers, you can definitely use me as a sounding board. I don't guarantee I'm gonna understand everything, but I will give you guys good feedback hopefully. So I think that's great. So another question about your interview process. You mentioned earlier that, thinking about the questions that we asked about CV brought you back to your very rigorous last round of interviewing. I don't know if it brought back like bad memories or something. I know interviewing brings back bad memories for me. But for your like interview process, how many rounds did you normally have? Did you start with a regular like screening and then multiple rounds and then on site? And how did your interview process differ across the types of companies and industries that you applied to?
mhm. So yeah, I guess the number of interviews I gave for a company on an average, I can say there were like around 3 interviews. Some company also had around 5 interview rounds, and some also had like only two rounds essentially. So yeah, initially like the interview process starts with a screening call. You usually get a call from HR, and then they'll try to understand like where you are and like how immediately you can join the company, or what is your joining date looks like very basic elementary questions. This can be like a phone call or like a 15-minute 20-minute video call to understand your work status and everything. So once you move past that, there'll be a round with a hiring manager where there'll be, it won't be like super technical. The hiring manager would essentially try to understand what projects you have done, what skill sets do you possess, and like once they have this good understanding, okay, the skill sets that the candidate possess can be used in the projects in the companies, you move on to the next round. So once you have cleared the hiring manager round, you further go on to the rounds with like the team members who you're going to work with, or like a very super technical person. This round essentially looks like, depending upon the position or the company, either it's like a competitive coding round, like a live coding round,
Okay.
or like a theoretical like computer vision side knowledge, theoretical knowledge interview question. So this is what it looked like. And the last part that you mentioned, yeah, like I gave interviews for like where like companies of different sizes. I also gave companies for like interviews for like smaller companies, like startups, mid-sized company, and like big companies too. Startup companies usually have like a very fast-paced interview process. They just want to get done and like make those decisions faster, while the big companies would have a bigger processes. So I guess I still remember like I started my job search on 16th of August. That was Monday,
Mhm.
and I already got an interview call on like Tuesday, and by Friday I had the job offer letter. So this
Oh,
is like a
wow.
1 week time.
That's awesome.
So
That's so fast. That's awesome. That's great.
yeah, yeah, I was surprised too. But so yeah, like every company has different processes for those interviews. So yeah, I would say just like keep in touch with like whatever emails or calls that you get, and try to answer them as soon as possible.
Great. No, and congratulations on that. That's an awesome turnaround. And just, I don't know, I feel like that's very motivating, honestly.
Yeah,
Um,
thank
so
you.
you talked a little bit about the rounds of interviews you had, and also like the types of like interviews you had, like going from like just general like resume screening projects you did, and then also technical interviews. So did you ever have any take home interviews? And if so, what were they like for computer vision roles?
Mhm. Um, this can vary personally because my mentor, like the way we develop the strategy for the interview processes, my
Mm,
focus was not to spend too much time on the take-home exams,
mm,
because they usually take around like 6 to 10 hours of like the take-home assessment, right? So
yeah.
investing that much time, like 10 hours of your time, is a lot, and you can
Uh-huh.
do a lot more instead of giving like just delivering that one test, right? So this is how I design my strategy, that I will try to maximize or utilize my time as best possible as I can. So there were some take home exams, but primarily they were like a coding take home exams. So like a hacker rank or a lead code platform, where there are like a bunch of questions that I have to do. It was basically a timed assessment,
Mm,
which was like maximum an hour long. So I guess that was okay to invest time in it. But like when it demands time for like 8 hours, 10 hours, I feel that's too much, and you can do a lot more in that time. But if it's a dream company and that's part of the process, and you really like that company, I would highly recommend going through that process, and basically investing your time would be worth it there.
yeah, that's a great point. Like a lot of people, I think, forget when they're doing the job interview process that it's not just, like trying to find a company that, will hire you, quote unquote, but it's also looking for a company that you think you will like and that's like a good fit for you. So how you mentioned, is it worth your time and just like doing prioritization, I think is also key, right? Because
Mhm.
I think, as you mentioned, you would have to go through a lot of interviews, right? And if you're not necessarily super, super passionate about the company, you're not even sure that you want to work there, and they give you this like 10-hour take home test, right? Do you really want to dedicate 10 hours of your life that you're never going to get back
Yeah,
on a test for a company that you're not even sure you want to work at? So
yeah,
I love that. And it's just, there are better ways to
yeah.
be more productive and spend your time on companies that you think you actually might be a better fit for, and that you think might be more impactful for your actual career. So that is an awesome point that I would highly want to again underscore for all of our mentees listening on.
Maybe I would just add one more point to it. But if this take-home assessment happens like deeper into your interview rounds, like take-home assessment is part of your fourth or fifth round, I would suggest like giving that assessment, because that is worth it, right? Like, because you're deep into the interview process, you wanna at least want to figure out the end result. Like you should, I would recommend you should give that test. And then if it's deeper into the interview process, because I feel that's worth it, you get to know, you move this far into the interview process, it's better to get through it. So
yeah, totally. And I really like how you talked about, or I think you kind of touched on this, how like interviewing is also just like looking at your preferences and like understanding your preferences, right? Like only you yourself will be able to evaluate like what type of interview and how much time and how much effort you would actually be willing to put into a certain company, into a certain role. And definitely, I think that's something that we shouldn't forget, because I feel like, as you mentioned, like interviewing is a very like grueling process, right? And if you do feel that like there's a company that, or like a specific like test or whatever, or like evaluation that is required but may not necessarily be the most impactful or the most efficient like way to use your time, nobody's like forcing you to do it, and like it's only like one job and one company out of like hundreds and thousands. So really love that. I'm definitely going to use that in my life, just like the prioritization method and like knowing yourself, because I think that's something that we can apply in general as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So we have another great question here, also related to technical assessments. So what would you say is the average time and standard deviation allowed for technical assessments? And I think the way I understand this question, like I guess like there's two ways that you could talk about it. So the first one is like what is the actual time allowed for like lead code hacker rank tests? And I guess the other way to interpret this is like, in your personal opinion, how long would you be willing to spend on a technical assessment? Maybe like a take-home test.
I see. Okay. So yeah, usually these technical assessments were really short when they were like competitive coding questions, because you would usually see like 3 or 4 coding questions, and each question would be allocated like 20 minutes. So it usually turns out to be like 60 or 80 minutes of time for this competitive coding take-home assessment. While I would be okay to spend like at least an hour, or maybe if I like the company a lot and the position really appeals to me, I would be also ready to spend like 2 hours on it. And maybe if there's one more way to interpret this question, is that how much time do you get to complete this test, right? Like as soon as you receive the link. I believe the companies were really supportive, and they gave me enough time, and if I needed more time, they would be able to accommodate my extended time frame in that. So let's say if I receive a link today, I would usually have a week's time, and I believe that was sufficient for me. But there was a case where I had to extend the deadline by 2 days. But yeah, communicating that is important, so that you still remain a part of the interview process. And like so yeah, just communicating if you need more time is important.
Yeah, definitely. I so agree that communication is key. Oftentimes, like when you are like recruiting for like multiple roles, sometimes what happens is, I don't know if you've seen this when you were interviewing, but I've heard that sometimes what happens is you get bombarded with like a lot of like take homes, and then you have to complete it by a certain number of time. And sometimes you have to do like, I don't know, like 5 in a week, and you're doing like one take home every day, right? So if you do feel like it's a lot, because like I think you also like need to kind of like refresh and like have a fresh perspective, especially because like these problems, like yes, you can lead code hard all day, but there's also like a creative aspect, I think, especially when you're trying to make your solution more efficient and so on and so forth, right? So yeah, I love how you mentioned keeping an open conversation with your hiring manager or your recruiter or who else you're working with within the company, because most people are understanding, especially during this time when people are in different circumstances. So really appreciate how, I mean, I feel like the recruiters are really empathetic. And yeah, it is a fun question. So we are in the last 9 minutes of our webinar. And so again, would like to highly encourage everyone to ask any questions you might have like in the last few minutes of the webinar. And while people are thinking about questions to ask, and while people are just like ruminating on like the knowledge that you've already shared with us, another question that I have is really about your tips when applying for data science jobs. So we covered a lot of ground today. We covered a lot of topics from your Sharpest Minds mentorship to your project to even like your master's degree, why you chose computer vision, and basically just like your journey, right? Um, Now we're talking a lot about like the interview and like what types of interviews you get and that you've given as well. If you had 3 big tips for folks here who are applying to data science jobs, what would they be?
So maybe two things that come to the top of my head, and I believe that this is super important in designing your strategy before you apply for the jobs. So one thing I would like to talk about is to how to plan out your day when you are in the job search process, and also how would you go on applying for the job. So maybe if we start on how to design your or strategize your day, I would like to go by this. Like, don't do just one task throughout your entire day, because sometimes when you're just like beginning out your career, like looking for first job, you would go super hard, like going 1 month, uh, like continuously applying for jobs, right?
Yeah.
Like it gets monotonous at one point, and it would be very easy to lose motivation or like do things wrong. So I would say that design your day properly. So this is what I used to do. So I used to do practice coding questions every day, and the first half of the day would be allocated to like revising my knowledge, practicing those skills every day, and that was my like first half. And the second half would be like applying for jobs and like keeping track of what jobs I applied. And I would end my day usually with like 1 or 2 networking meetings, trying to meet someone in the industry through LinkedIn networking. So this is how you design your day, and this will really help you, because at the same time you're keeping your skills sharp, applying for jobs that needs to be done, that's super important. And also you are going in this networking meetings where you try to learn 2 more things, and also try to make your impression in the industry, right? Like you try to convey what skills you possess to someone. It will help you to better understand what you want and where do you want to go. So that gives a lot of clarity. And the second thing that I wanted to touch on was the strategy. Like strategy varies, like it varies for every candidate, how where they are in their career, and like what skills do they possess. So this is what worked out for me. I used to go on job boards, and like try to figure out what positions I wanted. I used to apply there, but also I used to go with the LinkedIn networking strategy. So once I applied for a job, I tried to reach out to the people in that company where I applied, to basically try to understand what actually the position or the role would be, what would be the day to day like, and if it resonates with me or not. So at the same time, you're trying to understand about the position, and also trying to make your impression within the company, right? So that really helped. And there are like various other strategies listed on the Sharpest Mind portal, like cold email strategy too. So not every strategy would work with you. So initial days you would spend time experimenting that what strategy works, what is the response ratio, and yeah, just try to acknowledge that how you're getting that response and from where, and just keep documenting everything on your way. Like keep documenting all the jobs that you applied and if you have heard from there or not. And I guess yeah, Sharpest Minds had that tool on their portal too. So yeah, do use that. I recommend that.
Yeah, a few key points about what you mentioned. So thank you so much for sharing that. I think that is like really awesome to know. Um, I really like how you talked about planning. I think, people talk about this a lot, but actually seeing that you're doing it and seeing that it's valuable to you. And obviously, like you are like a success story, like landed an awesome job through your journey and, kind of like had a very successful mentorship as well. So planning like really goes a long way in like making sure you kind of know what direction you're going. My dad would always say this quote that like if you don't know where you're going, any road will lead you there. And I think that's just like an awesome example of what you mentioned. The other thing that you talked about, which I think is very, very important and impactful, is documenting your progress and like documenting what works and what doesn't work. And especially within the job search, you don't get a lot of signals right away. And a lot of the signals with your performance are delayed. So having your own sort of like documentation and data points, I think is really key and will help a lot when you're in the midst of a job search. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
So we have one last question here in the last 4 minutes from another one of our mentees here as well. So there's so many different routes to apply. There's hidden job market, personal network, LinkedIn fast apply, which is now a valuable tool. So what strategy would you recommend that mentees start with when they are applying to jobs?
This is an interesting question, and I believe this would vary profile to profile and like where you are in your career. LinkedIn Easy Apply is a very lucrative tool because it just takes like quick 10 seconds to apply for a job. That's really amazing, and I'm pretty sure everyone would have done it. But when I really saw that how much response did I get from that, I applied to almost a good number of jobs through easy apply, but like the response ratio is very low with that. So I would suggest like what worked for me was like applying through normal job board. I primarily used LinkedIn. I used to see good positions there, and that really resonated with me. So I started with that, and that really worked out with me. But I also was playing parallelly with like cold email strategies and like LinkedIn networking. So I slowly realized like what's working for me, and I just eliminated other strategies and like just went hard on like what worked for me. So yeah, initially I would say like experiment, document, and try to analyze what is working for you, because this will be a fast learning process for you, and you will get to your end goal super fast. So yeah.
Awesome. Experiment, document, and analyze. I love that. That's so quotable, actually. And yeah, again, just to like highlight what you mentioned, right? So one of the big reasons why we have these like navigating the job search webinars is that different things really work for different people. And it's interesting, like some people get a lot of success with job boards. Some people get more success through like coffee chats, and other people get success through like networking with sharpest minds, like mentors who are offering jobs, who are recruiting jobs, not offering jobs, but like recruiting for jobs within their companies, right? So it really depends on you and like depends on your journey. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways that I've at least learned from what you mentioned, Hardik. And yeah, so I guess with that, that's a really like good way to kind of close off this session since we are at time. But I just wanted to thank you again for sharing your knowledge with us, telling us about your journey into computer vision, and really like motivating all of us, I think, and giving us like a lot of like words of wisdom as well. So thank you so much for being here. And I really learned a lot from you. So really, really happy to have had you on the session. And I also just want to thank everyone who's attended this call as well. Thank you for spending your evening with us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amber. It was a pleasure being here. And just one last thing, I just want to give a shout out to my mentor, because I didn't only learn technical skills, but he also helped me develop my confidence where I am, and that's really important during the job process. So yeah, shout out to my mentor. His name is Warner. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. And you guys, again, we're gonna have these webinars every week on Tuesday afternoons. So hope to see you all on next week's webinar. Have a great evening, and I'll see you guys next week. Thank you. Bye.